check. There we go. Mic check, check 1 2. Mic check, 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 check 1 2. Check, check, check.
Hello, Mike. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Mic check. 1 1 1 1. Mic check. You guys good? Mic check. 1 2 1 2. Anybody need a white?
Mic check 1 2 3 4. Mic check.
Hello, Mike. 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Lowenthal. I'm the Assistant Fire Marshal with the Santa Rosa Fire Department. I'm also had the unique opportunity of being the Debris Task Force Leader for the City of Santa Rosa for the last 7 months. As a member of the fire department and as an employee of the City of Santa Rosa, it's quite a monumental moment to be here 7 months later, and there's a lot of good work that's been done. Behind me are the speakers. You have on your press packets the lists and names of the speakers. We'll go through each one of them individually. Following the final speaker, I'll come back up and we'll open up the question and answers period. Without any further delays, we'll get started.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Coursey, the mayor of Santa Rosa, and we're here today to mark a milestone, which is close to being complete on a debris cleanup of this disaster that came upon Santa Rosa and Sonoma County 7 months and 1 day ago. The debris cleanup has been unprecedented in the history of California. More than 2 million tons of debris has been carted away from the aftermath of the fire. If my math is correct, that's 4 billion pounds of debris. There are lots of numbers to think about here. But as we talk about and think about the numbers, I urge us all to remember that this isn't just about numbers. It's not just about debris. This represents people's lives and people's memories. A lot of people lost everything they had on the night of October 8th. More than these that we are fully into recovery mode at this point. In Santa Rosa, we have 117 homes under construction, rebuilds of homes burned by the fires. We have 85 more that have their permit either in the process.
FEMA-funded program that will be funded through December. A lot of the people resonated with that the most because the therapist said, are you drinking water? Are you eating? Are you sleeping? And most importantly, are you getting the support you need? Are you talking to your neighbors? Isolated. And so when we come here together to do basically a press conference, we're also talking about standing shoulder to shoulder with all of our different resources. And on behalf of the County of Sonoma, I want to thank the City of Santa Rosa. I want to thank Cal OES. I want to thank the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and their contractors, our incredible representatives back in Washington, Congressman Huffman and Congressman Thompson, who are working tirelessly to bring us back the millions, billions of dollars we need to rebuild our community. We do have a long road ahead of us, but we have completed major advance in the debris removal. Sonoma County has worked tirelessly to reach this goal. We've had over 40 community meetings in 4 weeks following the fires, and we continued with our partners. We hosted a right of entry processing center. I would be remiss not to mention our environmental health staff that processed literally over 3,000 applications for the government-run debris program. The county also participated in a debris task force, which has been instrumental in determining the process of debris removal. It's been a complex process. There have been a lot of players, but we've come together and we aren't done yet. That's the main thing. We aren't done yet. Everybody that stands here before you today has massive empathy over what residents are experiencing, not just now, not 7 months ago, but what they will be experiencing for the next 7 years. We embrace them, we are for them, and I promise you, we can't do enough for them. So even though we're talking about debris removal, it is, as the mayor said, about building people's lives. We've given many of them those foundations upon which they can build, and not only build new structures of which will house them and their families, but rebuild memories, the type of memories that we all need as we move forward as a community. Gladucci.
I'm Mark Ghilarducci, Governor Brown's Director of Emergency Services. I think I want to start off by saying that from the beginning of this very catastrophic, very devastating event, local, state, and that's carried through the recovery, a whole of community approach through the response and into the recovery. And we're continuing to work that today. This is a marathon, not a sprint. But you all may remember just roughly 7 months ago, that it's done in the best way possible. This is a tremendous effort, and moving forward, after the debris has been cleaned up, we're going to still continue to remain here through the process of helping our communities rebuild, making sure that every federal dollar that's available, making sure that state programs and dollars that are available, making sure that we leverage non-governmental organizations and community-based organizations to come together to ensure that our communities get rebuilt to the fullest. This is very important that you know this, because this is a one team, one fight effort, and will continue to be as we move forward. I can't say enough about the city of Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, Mendocino County, Lake County, Napa County, and all the communities that we've worked with through this process. And I'm really happy that we were able to meet the metric, at least 99% of getting the debris cleaned up in early 2010. So with that, now I'm going to turn it over to my partner, a great partner, Federal Coordinating Officer Bill Roach from the Federal Emergency Management Agency. FEMA has been at the hip with us right from the get-go, and I can't thank them enough for their continued support to all of us here in this disaster. So Bill Roach.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Mark. My name is Bill Roach. I'm the Federal Coordinating Officer on this event out of Region 9. Our offices are in Oakland. I want to reiterate some of the points that my partner at the state said. For one, we have an incredible, really an incredible working relationship with the state of California. That has benefited us at all levels, and without that, we wouldn't be getting done what we've gotten done thus far, and there's so much more left to do. To Mark's point, the federal government's here to help coordinate solutions, recovery solutions at the state and local level. I can't say enough about the local level and the relationships that we've built both at the state and federal level with the locals to get solutions. Early on, task forces were set up at the local level for both debris and housing that gave us ideas at the federal and state level so we could come to some solutions on housing folks that had been devastated and didn't have places to go, both through the early on process of housing and then the interim housing piece, and then ultimately to getting them to rebuild or do whatever they choose to do in the recovery. We know emphatically that people are still hurting. We're hurting right along with you. I've got staff in my own Oakland office that were directly impacted because they live in this area as well. So this is, to Mark's point, one team, one fight. It all started with debris. It doesn't end with debris. I think we've done a tremendous job collectively to get ourselves to this point. Still got work to do. We all know that, and we're not going away, both on the debris issues nor on the longer-term recovery impacts that we have to address, whether that be housing or any of the other things. The debris mission was a very complex and difficult mission to take on. 2.2 billion tons of debris, hazardous debris, that have been removed, and with the help of US EPA, Cal Recycle, USACE, and all the other state agencies and federal agencies, I think we've gotten us to a very good point now, so we can start focusing on helping in other areas. I would like to just say that be remiss, SBA also provided over 1,200 loans for somewhere in the amount of $155 million to help survivors make decisions to rebuild. So still, finally, I want to thank everybody behind me, all the agencies involved, others that aren't here, and of course, all the way down to the local level. Now I want to hand it off to Colonel Eric McFadden, the commander, Southern Pacific Division for the Corps of Engineers, that has been a monumental partner here with us in driving and managing the debris operations. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, it's my honor to be speaking here in front of you, provide you an update and wrapping up this very important work. And it's just to reiterate the fact that you've heard throughout the morning, we're not done yet. First, I do want to echo on behalf of our entire U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, heartfelt sympathy for the victims and survivors of the October wildfires. Since the onset of the mission, I've personally visited many of the impact areas and spoken with those who lost so much in this fire-ravaged region. And I cannot fathom the impact of this natural disaster had on victims and families. But I can assure you that our team here today are very proud to play an important part with the recovery effort and the reconstruction effort that's currently ongoing. Our role here has been one of supporting our local, state, and federal partners, removing eligible fire debris so the people living here could begin the task of rebuilding their homes and communities. As the lead agency for the Emergency Support Function 3, FEMA called upon the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in October to execute a massive debris removal operation. This program, in partnership with the California Governor Office of Emergency Services, and we've been working tirelessly ever since to accomplish this mission as quickly as safely as possible, while taking great care to minimize the environmental concerns in dealing with the contaminated material and show our deepest respect for the property owners throughout the process. Like many of our soldiers and civilian employees, I've been deployed around the world. What makes this deployment for our team so important is that the mission that we've had distinct privilege of deploying to help the people living here in Northern California. And in fact, many of our personnel that work in San Francisco area and Sacramento area are from this area, and some did lose their houses. And it was their honor to be part of the mission, and it's our honor to be part of the community that helped rebuild this. To date, we've had more than 850 volunteers from across the Army Corps of Engineers deployed to this region, and many of these people have been away from their families and friends for several months. And I assure you they wouldn't be here if they didn't care deeply about this effort that's ongoing. This mission truly took a unity of effort, working together to tackle the largest debris removal mission in California since 1906. The success of this joint endeavor is evident as we continue to see restoration efforts underway. To highlight some of that, we are 99% complete as of today, having removed 2.2 million tons of debris, which equates to nearly 314 square miles of fire area that's been cleared. 4,272 of the parcels have been cleared, tested, and we've notified the county that they're ready for rebuilding. However, I do want to reiterate there's still work to be done, and there's still work that's ongoing, including closing out issues and concerns that have been raised by property owners through our debris removal information line, and the financial and administrative actions necessary to provide parcel completion reports for every property to FEMA and to close out the contracts. I do want to conclude this by saying I've been in the Army for a long time, and I don't recall the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers ever being tasked with a debris removal mission of this size and scope. For the Corps and our partners, some of the efforts we undertook to complete these complex tasks, we were truly in uncharted waters, and we were innovating as we go, in some cases on a daily basis, to figure out the right solution for the right problem at the right time to rapidly reconstruct and move on to assist the survivors moving forward. I assure you that our team here today and our team that's been here on this entire mission truly takes great pride in having the opportunity to have served the people of Northern California as they recover from such an enormous widespread disaster. And in closing, I want to reiterate, it truly takes a community to rebuild a community, and we're honored to have been part of this community. I want to thank everyone here and everyone within these communities for allowing us to do that. It's my pleasure now to introduce the Director of U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, Enrique Manzanilla from Region 9 Superfund Division. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Enrique Manzanilla. I'm the Director of the Superfund Division at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency at our office in San Francisco. I really appreciate the invitation to be here with you today. You know, at the height of this response, EPA was able to gather almost 300 EPA staff and contractors to respond and to work with all our partners here gathered here today. Two individuals are here with me that were part of that group. Michelle Wittrick from our press office, who I think many of you got to know during the course of this response, and Steve Kalanog, who was my incident commander during basically 80% of the time frame of our involvement in this major response for us. You know, we got boots on the ground in mid-October, and we began the process of removing household hazardous waste from focus first on Napa and Sonoma counties, and then expanded to Lake and Mendocino counties. We surveyed thousands of burden parcels to locate and ensure the safe removal and disposal of household hazardous wastes, paint solvents, pesticides, propane tanks, other types of hazardous materials. We completed 95% of our assigned mission within the first month of being on the ground. After that first month, we began to work to assess and remove asbestos from burned buildings in those 4 counties. And this assessment, excavation, disposal work was just completed last month. So, in terms of numbers, we collected household hazardous waste from over 6,500 parcels, and we collected asbestos-containing material from over 700 parcels. In total, we collected over 2,600 tons of household hazardous waste and almost 25,000 cubic yards of asbestos-containing material. You know, we've done this in other wildfires in prior years, but the scale of this was unprecedented for us as an agency. And of course, we wouldn't have been able to do the work we've done without a tremendous effort on the part of many individuals at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, not just folks at U.S. EPA's office in Region 9. You should know that there were people here from our Denver office, our Seattle office, our Dallas office, many individuals. But of course, the collaboration of all the people gathered here today and others, like our friends and colleagues at Cali EPA. Lastly, I just want to, like others have done, to acknowledge the residents of these communities. You know, we did a lot of good work. The work still continues, obviously, and I want to acknowledge that these residents suffered a tremendous devastating loss, but I have, and my colleagues at EPA have, a high degree of respect for their resilience. So again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our speakers, and we'd now like to open for a question and answer period.
So how far are you from being 100% done? If that's the case, why the news conference today instead of waiting until it's completely?
Today's conference is really an update to provide you an understanding of kind of where we're at. And really today is a description that major operations are complete. And we're focusing on the remaining a few items that still remain. So really it was more of giving you a complete assessment of where we're at and what is still yet to be done. You know, with a change in tempo and a change in and the major operations are now complete, we didn't want people to say, hey, you know, we've seen less trucks, less activity, and think that things were going away. We wanted to make sure that everybody was up to speed on where we're at, but knowing that we're going to continue to stay till everything gets complete. We're pretty close. We're hoping to have everything done by the end of May. May 30th, that's right? Yeah.
The debris go to the Sonoma County landfill, and can you speak again about the square miles of debris?
So just to reiterate the number, 314 square miles of debris have been removed, and that's a math problem based on the total number of properties that were removed. The debris has gone to multiple landfills across the 4 counties, 7 to be exact.
How much is this whole project cost?
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah. So right now, based on the contracts that have been let, both at the federal and state level, we're somewhere just on the debris, plus or minus 1.3 billion. For well, it's hard to put a price tag per parcel. It's so expensive, largely because of the materials that are being taken away. Right, heavily, the mercury, asbestos has to be, as they say, burrito wrapped. I'm not an expert on the hazardous and what has to get done to it. Challenges, obviously, in distance, because landfills, the farther you have to truck it, the more costly it is, and those types of things is why it's so much higher than you would see on a hurricane event that has simply largely vegetative debris that can be, chopped and mulched and therefore not hauled off. Also, lots of tonnage, concrete, and those types of things add cost to it as well.
Has there ever been a higher price tag on a cleanup?
Yeah, I'm sure there has. I would imagine that 9/11 was a higher price tag. Yeah, how about, no, not off the top of my head. I don't have those figures in front of me. You want to take that one, the remaining 1%? Where are they at? Okay.
Just to address the remaining 1% of properties, complex properties. So there are some properties where the bridges have been burnt out. And so part of the effort to gain access to those parcels means the construction of a temporary bridging asset to come in and then be able to remove the debris. So very, very small numbers, final debris removal in some of those locations.
Colonel, you mentioned that over 850 volunteers have been a part of this effort.
Correct.
How many of those volunteers still remain?
So currently, we have roughly 100 people involved in the mission. And just to kind of highlight volunteers, from across the Army Corps of Engineers, we don't have a standing cadre of individuals that deploy regularly to disaster areas. Everybody has a job that they continue to do, whether it's a project manager, or they work construction efforts, civil works, military construction, navigation, operations. Wide variety of different people have volunteered for this mission.
Issues with landfills going up.
Oh, I can answer that? Yes, I can answer that. The county owns the landfill, and it's run through an agreement by Republic Services. Republic Services had expanded the landfill with a cell shortly, I think 2 weeks before the fires. And about 60% of the material, I understand from them, was diverted. So in terms of the debris, it was only about 40%. We still have, I talked to the director of the landfill from Republic Services 2 nights ago, and he said that we have 29 years of airspace still left at that landfill, 29 years. So just to halt that myth. I don't, but I think as the colonel already said, it went to several other landfills, but ours was the main one. But 29 years is about the best I think we can hope for with the landfill.
You know, a percentage we lost? I mean, did we lose 10%, 20%, 30% of that landfill usability for this cleanup?
I heard it was about 5%, but because they had expanded the cell and had just put the cell in literally 2 weeks before the fires, we had a lot of airspace, and we still do. And the other thing, too, is thanks to the Army Corps of Engineers and their contractors, they diverted the majority of that material, which is what it should be. We do not want to put material that can be reused in a landfill. So.
Who wants to address how the residents will essentially pay what is owed through the recovery process? You talk about the insurance case. So currently, right now, part of what the debris task force tracks is that portion. So the county right now is in conversations as to what that will look like and what the model will look like, and able to properly facilitate the essentially the billing portion of it. But part of the right of entry process involved actually providing some of your insurance documents to the right of entry process. And so those debris portions that are eligible for debris is what will be used to seek the recovery. But there could be other uses that the homeowner could use that debris removal for if there was anything else left on the property that wasn't necessarily eligible through the program. So all that will be taken into account as what's being looked at to make sure that residents' insurance pays for what's owed and doesn't take anything away from them that they would need for their own debris removal.
I know there are a number of issues with contracting in the course of this year, protest bids and kind of back and forth and some delays because of that. Has FEMA and Army Corps learned anything about their contracting process to kind of solve these problems in the future, or is each disaster just kind of a new learning experience?
So, yes, we've certainly learned some lessons, on this. One, the Corps' contract, the ACI contract, that's a pre-bid contract, and it's nationwide in 3 different areas, has all kinds of labor rates and those types of things in there. The existing contract that they had to deal with had nothing in there for fire components. So we had to, that's why there were some difficulties in the contracting process, because we had to go back and negotiate pricing on this type of complex fire removal, asbestos, metals, and all those things. And so we've had an after action on the federal side with the Corps all the way up to headquarters and they're recompeting their contracts this coming year. And that fire component, everything we've learned here is going to be in that new contract. So the lesson was learned. Unfortunately, it caused some heartache and delays, but there was measures taken largely on the state side to solve for that along with us, so we wouldn't have any stoppage of work. So while it was a issue, it was never an issue in getting work done. So it didn't delay getting work done. I can answer that coming from the public assistance side of the house in my my previous life. So we're continuing to work with not only Santa Rosa, but all the applicants that have public infrastructure damage. Specific to the Santa Rosa water, we're waiting to get some sampling reports on the levels of benzene, and then we're going to work with them on the scope of work and the federal dollars and state dollars that will accompany that work, so they can repair, restore that facility or that function. So the public assistance program is certainly one that is going to be, probably we'll be here just doing some grants over the next 30, 60, 90 days, working with the communities, local, state levels to make sure we get those grants and the funding in place so they can continue with the recovery.
Correct. What we're doing is there are some sites that were overscraped, and so we're going through and with the federal partners and the local governments and evaluating if that was in fact the case, and if it was, then we're bringing in. We have a different contractor that's coming in and placing a fill base back in there to get it to a place where it's ready to be moved forward in the rebuild. So. Really, that's been through the assessment a handful of properties, but it's across all the different counties that we're looking at just to make sure that we are addressing the commitments that we made. And look, this is not a surgical procedure, okay? There's nothing finite about this. This is a massive, very broad scale debris cleanup, and sometimes you're going to get a little overscraping, sometimes you're going to get a little damage. But when you think about the size, scope, and complexity of this, the amount of debris was removed, it really ended up with just a handful. We'll continue to work with the resident and the community to address all of those.
And can you also talk a little bit about the cow recycle program that happens in other counties? Like, is that all completed, and how did that go, and how did that compare to the Army Corps program?
The Cal Recycle programs in the north, that's Cal Recycle is the state agency that we typically use for debris or response and debris cleanup on events that don't typically go to a federal disaster for the most part. And they had the North Butte and Yuba and Placer, some of these northern California counties. They were able to move forward. Those, of course, were smaller operational scopes. They do that all the time. They do a great job, and they use their contractors to facilitate those. Those have been completed long ago. It was important for us to get them to complete those so that we would free them up in the event that we had something else break in the state. We, in fact, did have something else break in the state. We had Ventura County, the Thomas Fire, resulted in over 1,000 structures in Ventura County and then in Santa Barbara. And we were able to redivert those Cal Recycle resources down there and begin their operation. And that operation is also close to about, I would say, 95%, 96% complete. Again, all in this time frame, very compressed, statewide, what we would consider 3 catastrophic events, the Thomas Fire in Ventura, the Santa Barbara mudslides, and the fires up north, balancing all 3 of these with all these resources to meet metrics that were really unprecedented set of metrics, get those done while still taking into account all the impacts to the community. You're welcome.
I'll take one last question, if there is one. Seeing none, thank you everybody for coming, and we appreciate it.
Hey, Paul. Jim from Basic
Hey,
News.
Jim, how are you?
Okay. I heard 2 different numbers about the way that the tonnage are removed.
1 point, because it's Northern California, so with Sonoma County, 1.9 million. Northern California, 2.2.
Sonoma County, 1.9 million tons.
2.2. That's Northern California. Because remember, this is a press conference for all of the Northern California